Hi, welcome to this first video in the Chordal Harmony series. We're going to explain some of the terminology that you'll need later on in order to make full use of some of the slightly more advanced concepts you'll come across later in the series. So today we need to have a bit of a discussion about things like tones, semitones, intervals and that kind of thing. So we'll get to hear what some of these basic building blocks sound like and what they actually look like visually on a keyboard, that kind of thing. So we might as well get straight into it. Let's get this keyboard layout in front of us. As you can see, there's a certain regularity to it. There's repeated sections of what looks like exactly the same thing. So within each repeated section, if you take the time to look, you'll see that there's 12 different notes. The note next, just to the left of the group of two black notes each time, the white note just to the left of them is a C. It's a good starting point to think of everything from, just because you can create a really standard do re mi scale from C without having to come away from the white notes for the time being. And between one C and the next, in this way, you get what's called an octave. So within each octave, you've got all these 12 different notes that you need for all your chords and intervals and that kind of thing. So here are these 12 notes. Now, distance between each of the successive notes is called a semitone. Sometimes it's called a minor second as well, depending on the context that you're using it in. Semitone or minor second it's the same thing as what you'd see as a one step on your sequencer grid. It's kind of the smallest distance you get between two notes in Western music. I mean, there's other music traditions that have smaller intervals than that, such as Indian and Arabic, but we're not going to worry about those for now. So moving on, if you jump over the black note to the next white note, the distance between those two first white notes is known as a tone. It's two semitones added together. So if you play all those notes in sequence, all the white notes, you get a C major scale. A lot of you will recognize this as a kind of do re mi kind of sound, but actually think of it as a musician, you should think of it in terms of like a palette of notes that you can create all the chords from that you'll need for your tune, if it happens to be in C major. So it's a key, it defines a key of C major. So all the key is, it's one group of notes that includes some and excludes others. So just think of it as your palette for creating sounds, and obviously then in the later videos we'll see exactly how we use that palette to create sounds, but that's the attitude to take about it, really. Here we have some examples of that other word we used, interval. What's an interval? It's just a distance between two notes. Each octave contains quite a few different intervals. Each scale, such as the C major one you just heard, contains quite a few different intervals, and obviously these are some of the really basic building blocks of music. It's worth getting to know exactly how each different interval is firstly sounds and how you can recognize it, and then secondarily what it's called. A lot of people learn them by associating them with familiar tunes, which seems pretty logical for a semitone, something familiar. For a whole tone or a major second, happy birthday is quite an easy one to remember. The next one is a minor third. This is coincidentally the first two notes of two very common scales that people use to create melodies. The first one's called a minor pentatonic and the second one's called a blues scale. We'll play the blues scale for you in a second. But the minor third is a very common basis for all sorts of riffs and sort of bluesy melodies. So that's worth just saving in your mind. If you want a tune to associate with it, it could be something like Greensleeves. or even something like Smoke on the Water, a guitar shop classic. So yeah, blues scale just has that extra note. Blues scale and pentatonic, don't worry too much about them for now. Google them if you're interested, but we're not too concerned with them this minute. Some of this terminology will just drift in gradually, and I'm not going to try and force too much of it on you for the time being. But let's concentrate on trying to get familiar with some of the sounds of the intervals and what they're called. So moving on up the octave, we've minor second, major second, minor third. Yeah, so green sleeves as a possible mnemonic for minor thirds. So moving up to major thirds now. A major third is the first two notes of the three-note C major triad chord, C, E and G. Probably the simplest chord that you could learn on the piano when you're starting off. C major triad as opposed to C minor, which you just heard. Difference in sound, of course. Major's known as being a bit happier in the vibe that it gives off. So a mnemonic tune for major third could be something like When the Saints Go Marching In. Just whatever works for you, really. Okay, so moving up to perfect fourth. It's called perfect because it occurs in minor scales as well. Minor scales we are dealing with at a later date. Yeah, perfect fourth is the next one. C to F in this case. Yeah, little classical reference there might help. It's just whatever is familiar, obviously. Moving on to what would be an augmented fourth. Sometimes they're called diminished fifths or tritones. They've got three different names, these ones. The Simpsons may be an obvious choice. First two notes of the theme when the program starts. So that one's got three different names. It's an important note in harmony construction, chord construction, as we'll find later on in the course as well. Yeah, tritones, three whole tones joined together if you count them up. Perfect fifth, next one, Star Wars theme. But again, whatever works for you. Terminology just means you find it in minor scales as well. Next one up is a minor sixth. Just imagine a perfect fifth with one extra semitone added. Some people might think of something like Scott Joplin's Entertainer. You may know that. It's a pretty well-known early 20th century melody. Next we've got a major sixth, that's C to A in this case. So if you wanted to try and get the sound in your head, you could also practice singing up the scale to any of these in your head, using a keyboard as well to kind of prompt you. It really does help them get them into your imagination and your brain. So there we've got a major seventh now we've jumped up to, as opposed to the minor seventh there. Red Hot Chili Peppers tune, which some of you might know, Don't Stop. The major seventh one was something called Take On Me by a-ha, but obviously it's whatever your musical taste has been in the past that might help you with this. The octave is the first two notes of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, C to C. So there we have a few interval sounds for you to work with.